Welcome to Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing podcast. Each week, John Jasmine interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Jasmine.
Welcome to Target Market Insights, the Multifamily and Marketing Show. I'm your host, John Jasmine, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this show, do me one quick favor and leave us that 5-star rating and review. And if you have not already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Today, we've got a special one. We have Jasmine Star. Now, Jasmine Star is a business strategist and photographer that helps entrepreneurs grow social platforms. So if you're looking to grow your personal brand or grow your own platform, today is the episode you have been waiting for. Let's welcome to the show, Jasmine Star.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm really excited to talk to you today. I gave a little bit of a background on what you do and who you help, but why don't you fill in some of the gaps there?
Well, I can say that I'm very proud at empowering small business owners and those who are developing their personal brand to extend it on social media. And we don't do that through very typical digital marketing techniques. We do that by showcasing who you are, what you do, and the why behind it. Those three things are the things that are going to differentiate yourself in a very saturated market, build trust, and trust is ultimately what leads to conversions.
Who you are, what you do, and the why behind it. Very powerful tips there. Can you just break that down a little bit more about who you are, why you do it, or who you are, what you do, and the why behind it?
Yeah, so I'm just going to use an example and feel free to correct me if I'm not speaking your language in your industry. But when we talk about who you are, there's a lot of people who want to get into real estate investment. And a lot of times, specifically, I'm a West Coast girl. You know, it's like the zip codes matter out here. So you're not dealing with small numbers. You're dealing with these massive numbers. And what we want people to do is to look at accolades or to look at letters behind our names, you know, JD, PhD, MBA, as if that's going to be the ticket that's going to solicit trust. I don't care how many letters you have after your name. I don't care if you fly a private jet. What I need to know is, do I trust you enough to get into an investment? Because this is a long-standing relationship. So number one, who you are. Number two, what you do, right? Because real estate investment looks very different. And only if you're in the industry can you then understand the minutia. But between, are you getting into investments from a commercial capacity, from a residential capacity? What does it look like for multi-home dwellings? Like when you go into what you do and your specialty, another point of differentiation and why. And I want to be very clear. I do not have a problem. If you're like, why I do this for the Benjamins. That's why I show up. I don't give a rip why you do it. What's going to happen is you're going to find somebody else who's like, you like Benjamins, I like Benjamins. Let's make a multi-Benjamin family. Okay. But when you talk about the freedom, I am a daughter of an immigrant. If I got into, real estate, I'm going to go in because real estate is the thing that is the American dream. I'm living out my father's legacy. I'm living out why my mother always dreamt of a white picket fence. Perhaps I am going to come in, my why is being a first-generation Latina, to show other brown girls what it means to have an 8-9-figure life and business and be proud of it. We all have different reasons why. None of them is right or wrong. But what I just explained to you, look, I'm not even in the real estate investment game. And if I came into the game, watch out. Watch out. People will be like, I want to work with her. I ain't got no experience, but I clearly said, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I'm for. You want to have a conversation? Let's do that real quick. And so many people are so afraid. We want to hide behind it. Well, you see, I haven't done those big enough projects. I haven't done an 8-figure listing. And you talk yourself out of it. Listen, show up as you, honey. You're going to be a perfect puzzle piece to somebody else that's want to get in the game with you.
Man, I absolutely love it. I love the part that you talk about as far as showing up, be who you are. And if you don't have the experience, it's okay. You're going to meet people who either have the experience to complement it or who can help you get to the next level, and just really understanding who you are, what you want. And it's all about the Benjamin. So if that's what you're about, then come at it that way. But make sure that you are focused on how you drive value and who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Great tips there. I really appreciate that.
And I want to just tap on something real quick before we go on, because it's going to set the foundation. Is so often we look at experience as a currency. And while that's true, we don't always just deal in dollar bills, currency for us can look like quarters, can look like dollars, can look like pennies. And so I don't want us to be like, oh, it only looks a certain way, because while you might not have experience, you might have a different type of value proposition. If I am, let's just call it for what it is. Like if I'm a white investor and I want to buy a building in West Los Angeles, in Compton, it would behoove me to have a business partner who's familiar with that neighborhood. We're familiar with the people. How then do we do this revamp? What kind of properties? Like what's going to be the up and coming area in, in West Los Angeles, in Compton, in Linwood? Having a partner like that, even though might not have the experience, what you have is something else that I find attractive, but we don't know who you are and your value prop if you're not sharing that.
Love it. You got to put it out there. So part of it is sharing it so people know what value you bring to the table. You don't have to have the experience and the credibility, because you may bring experience or credibility in another asset. Absolutely. Love it. So let's talk about you for a little bit, because, I talked about being a photographer, and now you're really helping so many entrepreneurs. You have a huge following on Instagram in particular, but walk me through a little bit of your journey, kind of how you got to this place to help other people.
Like I mentioned before, I am the daughter of an immigrant. I'm a first generation college student, and I'm the first generation postgraduate student. I ended up getting a scholarship to UCLA Law School, where I was there during my first year. My mom had a relapse of brain cancer, and my mom had a relapse of brain cancer. I had a relapse of depression. I moved back home, and I realized that like my life was beyond like a very predictable path. I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I had a bigger purpose. And instead of doing the safe route, which would be to get my Juris Doctorate and to be in a downtown high rise in West Los Angeles, it was something else. And so I did a crazy thing. I picked up a camera. I had never had a camera before in my life. Picked up a camera. I became a photographer. I started a business. The business went worldwide, got a bunch of awards and accolades along the way. And then I started teaching people, how do you do the thing you want to do when you are unqualified, unprepared, unfunded, underconnected, and undereducated? How do you do all that? Let's have a conversation. So I empower people to believe in possible dreams, because impossibilities are just possibilities in disguise if you know how to look at them.
I love that, man. How to get into these impossible dreams. And what you said, I mean, many of our listeners right now are talking themselves out of doing deals for that reason. Underfunded, underconnected, don't have the experience, don't have the knowledge, don't have the money, but you're still finding ways to make it happen. And anyone listening to this is powerful information, because most of the time we are blocking our own fruits of our labor, right? Because we get in our way. We look at the limiting beliefs, the things that we don't have, and we use that as justification to not take that first step. And you talked about picking up a camera. What I didn't hear you say was you did all these other things. You picked up 100 books that you read on photography, and you took 100 classes. And I didn't hear you say that. You talked about picking up a camera and going. And I'm not advising anyone to just go out there and buy real estate because you definitely want to do more homework in this case, but you do need to take action, and nothing happens until you actually take action. And the other thing is, and I'm sure this happened for you as well, once you start taking action, the help that you need, the things that you need, the world starts to give it to you. People start to flock to you to help. So if you need something, if you're taking action, it's going to be much easier for people to see the kind of help you need and offer up those solutions, rather than if you don't take any action at all. So you really recognize that your dream, you may come to life by picking up the camera and becoming a world-class photographer, but recognizing that there are a lot of other people that would not have started taking their own dreams into their hands for those reasons that you just laid out. Was there an epiphany, or was there something that happened that made you say, you know what, I have to share this process, this gift, this mindset with other people so they recognize that their dreams can be reality as well?
Yes. Now that, my friend, is going to be like the icing on the cake. Let's put this, maybe the fondant. Okay. Like if you're in baking, fondant is that clean, crisp, beautiful icing that looks just like butter on a cake. I want to save that. I want to put a pin there, but I also want to back up a tiny bit, because the thing that I have heard again and again is we get this like resistance. We get a resistance to, oh, well, that works for her and that works for him. But you see, John, you don't know where I'm coming from. You don't know what I don't have. And Tony Robbins said it best. You will find reasons. I actually don't know if this is Tony Robbins. It could have been my dad. My daddy might have said this. I'm not quite sure. What I heard was you will either find reasons for your success or excuses for your inaction. So I will look at anybody with any tools or lack thereof and say, what do you want and how bad do you want it? Because while I didn't take photography classes, I didn't go to art school, I didn't get my MBA, I didn't sign up for the next big coach in the photography world, I didn't do business classes or course. What I did do is go to the free interwebs, and I found out how can I connect truly and offer value to somebody else to give me access or insight to what they know. Now, I came in, I'm not going to date myself, but let me just say, it wasn't as easy as it is now. Because if I was going to get into real estate investing, and y'all are listening to this podcast, if I got into real estate investing, y'all better be scared, because this brown girl's going to just own some city blocks. What I would do would be go to Facebook and I would find a real estate investing group. Not one, I would sign up for 10 indiscriminately. I'm not going to think, oh, is this the perfect one for me? No. I'm going to get in anywhere that would have me from the warehouse to the White House. You do high end, you do low end. I would that group because I just need to learn how to speak the language. Number 2, I would start creeping on hashtags for real estate investing on Twitter. That's what I would do, because Twitter is a cocktail party that people are literally begging other people to join the conversation. You hop on a hashtag and then you reply to somebody without a question, without wanting something, to be like, hey, I really appreciate that insight. If I was going to get into real estate investing, I would just spend 37 minutes on a LinkedIn search and be like, who are the real estate investors who are creating content on LinkedIn? Those 3 platforms all day, every day. And I guarantee you, because right now you ain't got money, you ain't got experience, and you ain't got resources. What do you have that a lot of people don't? You have time. If you have time, stop giving me all the reasons why you can't do what you want to do. The internet democratized the way real estate, aka business, aka transactions, are done. How bad do you want it, honey boo boo? You're going to find a reason or you're going to find an excuse. So I picked up a camera and I went to Google. I went to the University of Google. Guess what? Google's still around. It is a new university for hustlers and entrepreneurs. Wake up and smell the coffee.
Google University, MBA right there.
That's
Love
right,
it.
honey. No, hey, not an MBA. I got a doctorate. I got a doctorate in Google education. And I want to say, John, what you learn, you got to give back. Yeah. What you learn, because the things that I learned from different industries and different people, I then became to contextualize it for photographers. And guess what? By just sharing what I learned, by regurgitating, I'm like, oh, I heard this and over here in this industry and this industry. And I'm like, let me contextualize it for what this means for photographers. And I just put it on a blog post. And lo and behold, the University of Google, you were once a student, then you become a professor, then you got letters behind your name. And then you just like, I'm wearing a big fluffy hat for a PhD, handing out diplomas. That's what I want to do.
I love it. I love it. And there's so much great information out there. And the fact that you can kind of be a sponge, soak it all in to the point where now you can be the educator yourself. You can be the professor. You can create blogs or other content, sharing it with others. That's really where you kind of get that full circle value, because you've taken it in. Now you're giving it back, and you're positioning yourself now as someone who you can call it the expert, but you know more than most other people. And that's really the key, is that you know more than the people who are listening, so you can educate them and kind of bring them up to speed with where you're at. So real powerful tips there. You are, in particular, you talked about, what to do with Google. You talked about how to get on Twitter. You talked about spending 37 minutes on LinkedIn. That was really specific, by the way. I don't know if there's a reason for 37 minutes as opposed to, say, a half hour, but that was really, really specific.
Okay, but here's the thing. So one thing, like people say, oh, Jasmine, she's a hustler. Jasmine's a dreamer. Jasmine's an entrepreneur. What I really think I am, I'm a watcher. I watch people. And even though, there's like a lot of social distancing and I'm not out in public places anymore, I watch behavior online. I'm also the founder of Social Curator. There's thousands and thousands of business owners, and I get to watch, I get to hear, I get to see what they're doing. And oftentimes when you say put in 30 minutes, you will get 29.59 minutes in that. And oftentimes it's like you want to give up. But the search beyond 30 minutes, that's where you start thinking, oh, this is the pattern. This is where I want to go. And if I told you got to do 45 minutes, people say, I don't have 45 minutes, Jasmine. But what stuck out to you is the number that I just randomly pulled, 37. 37? Okay, it's 37. I could do that. When you give somebody a clear, actionable plan, just go beyond what you're comfortable, but don't talk yourself out of the 45. I chose 37, right smack in the middle.
I love it, man. Listen, this is powerful tips every time you open your mouth. This is really just good information right here. So we're talking about LinkedIn, Twitter. We haven't talked about Instagram yet, and you are an absolute queen beast when it comes to Instagram. First of all, if you could just help us understand high level Instagram, especially when it comes to personal branding, what is the right high level approach we should be taking? And then maybe you could walk us through some of the best practices.
Absolutely. I'm going to point back, like, thankfully, like life works in a myriad of ways. And today I can proudly, easily talk about Instagram. And a couple years ago, I was proudly talking about Facebook. A couple years ago, before that, it was YouTube. Before that, it was Twitter. I want to be and I'm expanding now on LinkedIn. I want to be very clear that I'm a brown girl from the hood trying to make, a dollar out of 15 cents. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm leveraging the free resources, learning the platforms. If you watch carefully my iteration, I immediately iterated into the next big platform to maximize my growth opportunities. So you will see how I've iterated from over 100,000 on Twitter. I got 70,000 on YouTube. I got almost 300 on Facebook, almost 400 on Instagram. The next thing, I want to be very careful. Watch that be beyond Instagram. You want to be first to adapt. You want to learn what those platforms are doing. You want to get in, get dirty, become a purveyor of education. That's how you set yourself apart. But if we're going to be talking about Instagram right now, we're going to go back to where we started the conversation. Who I am, what I do, and why I do it. Now, part of the reason why there are certain industries that I got to be very careful with, because I have a tendency to just talk before I think. And so I want to make sure that I'm winning your audience over. I want to be nice, warm and fuzzy. I don't want to come out like the crazy Latina that I am. But there's this temptation that I see specifically in that real estate world. That is just like Cristal, infinity pools, my Ferrari that I rented that I'm not telling anybody, parking it right outside of the house. Like, oh, I flipped this house and I made this. It's like, that is so heavy on Instagram because Instagram is such a visual platform. You have to sell something from the visual aspect and you got to live the life. But that is hot air. Instagram has been around now a decade. And what do we see specifically starting strongly in March 2020? That lavish lifestyle that everybody's out and about doing the dang thing, living it up. It got real quiet. When everybody's got stuck at home. It got real quiet. Oh, you're not going live anymore in your house, huh? Why? Oh, you're not brokering those deals. You're not at, Fig and Olive in West Hollywood. Why? Your content is going to be the thing that sticks you out, not the flash in the pan. I'm cool. I'm popular. Got 6 figures. Buy my course so I can teach you you can get your first 6 figures in a month. The long-term stand of your brand, a brand as defined by Seth Godin, is the reason why a consumer would choose one business over another based on experiences and stories. So if we think about a brand, somebody once explained a brand to me as what somebody says about you when you walk out of a room. So on Instagram, if we were to look at your posts and somebody walks out of the room like, man, he's real full of himself. He really likes to talk more than he likes to listen. He likes to be really flashy, or do want to say, I really like how he made me feel. He taught me something. He brought me on the journey. I like him so much. I want to clap up that big investment because he walked us through the process of how he did it. He was transparent. She was forthcoming. She talked about the bad days. They showed the broken pipes to the flip. They said they wanted to make this much and they only made this much. Now they're sharing the lessons that they learned with me. I want to clap that trash up. A brand is what somebody says about you when you walk in the room. When you look at your Instagram post, if they're all about you need to turn it around and say from your account, it's all about you, sweet, benevolent, amazing followers. I am here to serve you. What can my business do for you? And then in the long run, the person who you spent 30 seconds responding to a direct message back in 2016, and all of a sudden they made smart, small investments. They finally nickeled and dimed their way to be a really strong partner for you to say, this is what I did. And there's a downturn coming in 2021, and they're going to come to you and offer you the golden ticket. Why? Because you paid attention to them when nobody else was. That's your brand.
Man, powerful stuff there. I love the part where you talked about serving, right? Because it's so easy to get on Instagram, in particular Instagram, and just,
right,
like you said, show the lifestyle, show what you're doing, show what you have going on. But you talked about flipping the camera. Even though the camera's on you, it's not about you. It's about serving the audience and showing them the information that they need, giving them the answers to the questions that they have. And I see a lot of people do this maybe with like quotes or using words or trying to explain, jargon, things like that. But your point about showing the broken pipes, showing the things that HGTV is not going to show you about, what happens when the flip goes wrong, or, right now where you're having some residents who are having a hard time paying rent, and how you're navigating through those tough situations, but actually educating people through your content, as opposed to just trying to go out there and show a lifestyle or show who you are and what you're doing and being self-absorbed. I mean, that's really a strong way to think about it. And I love the fact that you use the word serve, because I think it puts us in the right mindset as far as what our role is and what role our content should be playing when we are having communications with our listeners or our viewers or the folks who are following our information.
Yes and amen.
Yeah. So you've grown. You mentioned, you starting off on Twitter and having around 70,000 followers and kind of moving over to 100,000 to 300 some thousand to close to 400,000 now on Instagram. Is that a matter of just kind of a snowball effect where you have some folks who are here and they follow you there to the next one? Or is there something different that you're doing, especially as a photographer, but is there something different that you're doing specifically on Instagram that allows you to attract and engage a wider network?
Well, I mean, I make no beef about it, specifically the growth potential. When Twitter came out, I think I jumped on Twitter like strategically for my business around 2009, about around 2009. And like Twitter was like the first form of social media that we ever knew or understood. So there was a much smaller pool of people who would actually jump on a social network to talk to strangers on the interweb. That was crazy talk. And then Facebook came on and they rolled it out really smart. They just went to college students who would then adapt it, tell their friends, and go naturally from there. So Facebook came on and was really a great component to start learning how to scale conversations. So what I put out in the status update without a photo, people would just randomly see and start engaging. That taught me the art of scalable conversations. And then YouTube came around and I'm like, oh, I can have scalable conversations in video format. So every time I jumped from one platform to another while still maintaining activity on that platform, I was understanding what made that platform unique. And then Instagram came around, and I have to say that Instagram in recent history has just got it right. They got the understanding that as humans, we're visually stimulated. So if you have a photo, there's a higher likelihood of somebody to engage. Facebook saw that early on. So they started indexing the algorithm. Live video, you'd get the most organic reach. Then you would have a produced video, and then you would have a photo and caption. And at the very bottom of the algorithm, that was going to get very little reach these days on Facebook, is if it's just a text only. Because people now know we don't really read the text. We want to go to the photo first, assess, is this something I want to get into? And then read from there. Instagram got that right from the pop. So what worked in my favor on Instagram was I was a photographer. I could create visual collateral in a snap of a finger. And a lot of people were slow to get onto that platform because it required no BS. I got to show up and I got to create content. So Facebook was really great to have an opinion about content. Instagram put the feet to the fire for people early on to create the content. And now I don't think that Instagram is as intimidating because studies show that 20% of people on Instagram are producing 80% of the content. So what does this tell us? That there are people out there repurposing our content. So if you have the ability to create content, you will empower other people to repurpose the content. That right there was a big mark of differentiation for me, and I leveraged that really once I understood the power. Like I meandered on Instagram for a while. Like I was stuck. I was like, here I am, a photographer, and the irony is I don't know how to use this platform. Then 2015 came along, and I was like, I got sick and tired of seeing other people use it. And I was like, girl, come correct. What are you about? The minute I actually made it about other people, the minute that I started sharing what I knew, the minute I started sharing tips, then things snowballed. Going back to using that word snowball, there is some overlay. Some people will follow from Facebook over to Instagram, but by and large, a lot of people are creatures of habit. When they click their platform of choice, that's really where they want to party. So case in point, I recently got my account over on TikTok. Do I think that I'm their target demographic? No. Do I think my customers exist on TikTok? No. ... Not yet. So I see that there is much faster growth potential on TikTok than there was on Instagram, which is bananas. So what I'm doing is, again, got to play the long game. And I hope that I get to return back in a couple of years and be like, oh yeah, I got 2.2 million on TikTok. It's like got to be the first to get next game. So that, I practice what I preach.
Absolutely. And the irony is earlier today, actually, I was speaking to a friend of mine who was a former NFL player. He's a current real estate investor. And he was pushing me hard. He said, you got to get a TikTok account. And he has a video that has already done over 1 million views on TikTok. And his point was exactly what you said. It's that it's different algorithms and it's a growing platform. And if you can be kind of an early content creator on TikTok, especially in a space where we're talking about more business, more, like they didn't even have a business category to select as far as my interest, right? They didn't have real estate on there. It was like, do you like comedy? Do you like sports? Do you like animals? It's like, where's the business section, right? But if you can go on there, you can absolutely get the eyeballs that it would be much harder to garner on YouTube right now, where there are so many videos out there. So if you can get ahead of it a little bit and start to be a pioneer in some of these newer platforms, especially one like TikTok, where so many people are going to that platform that we've seen, especially over the last few months here, that may be a great way to grow. As we're talking about personal brands, you talked about making sure that we understand who we are, what we do, and why we do it. As we think about the other part, you mentioned, a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room or when you leave the room. As we look at social media, and I'll go back to Instagram specifically, as we look at that, what kind of content outside of, just kind of the advice content that you mentioned, what should we be thinking, or how do we develop a content strategy is probably a better way to ask that question. What is our approach to developing a content strategy?
Well, we could talk about this for a few hours. Let me try to give you a bite-sized piece, and then you can ask clarifying questions. Oftentimes, you look at a platform specific like Instagram, and you think initially, I can post anything. And then it's followed up by the subsequent, I can post anything. Like, where do I even start? And so it's like, how do you boil the ocean? One cup at a time. So one of the reasons why I've been able to streamline content and produce in large scale is because I've systematized the way that I approach, let's just focus on Instagram, but this applies to the other platforms I'm engaging with as well. So when it comes to Instagram, instead of getting wildly overwhelmed, I've created categories. Now, categories empower you to talk about your business without having to sell your business. Because if every Instagram post is to sell your business or what you do, nobody's going to pay attention because nobody watches QVC all day, every day. Nobody wants to be sold to on a continuous basis. What do they want? They want to feel good. They want to laugh. They want to be educated. They want sneak peeks. Like, that's why people are on social media, to be, wait for it, social. So if you aren't creating content that is social, then you're going to have a very hard time growing considering the audience. So categories empower you to talk about your business without having to sell your business. On the inside of Social Curator, a business that I found, I encourage people to come up with 9 to 12 categories. Now, categories, for instance, like, what are you going to be talking about? Let's just say for this instance is the books that I read. The books that I read, I am not selling books. I don't write books. I don't publish books. But one of my categories that I can talk about on Instagram are the books that I'm reading, because like attracts like. I'm putting out what I want to attract. People who are into education, people who are into self-betterment, people who are into the hustle, people who want to learn. So once you have your 9 to 12 categories, and on the inside of Social Curator, we've systematized 7 of those categories because these are the 7 best performing categories on social media. Things like about me. Things like your why, Things like to showcase the benefits or the value. All of these are categories right now. So you got a pin, write these down. Another one of them is tutorials or behind the scenes. Another one of them is going to be motivation, right? So what we're talking about are systematizing what we talk about so that our followers become very accustomed to understanding, guess what, our who, our what, our why. The second part of this equation would be the photo topics. Photo topics are things that you want to visually represent your business when somebody is first scrolling through the platform. Now, we have discovered that when people are producing on a somewhat regular scale, guess what? 7 to 9 photo topics. Now, what are photo topics? Things that people can look at and immediately start identifying with your business. If it's a for sale sign, if it's you jumping with keys or doing a boomerang with a bottle of champagne, whatever it is, these are the things that over time people will start associating with your brand. That right there is how you boil the ocean and not get intimidated, because what we want people to do is to make time by being strategic with how they show up on Instagram so they're not buried by it and they can still build their business.
Yeah, great stuff there. Listen, I think everybody should rewind back 2 minutes and 37 seconds and just replay.
Did you really mean the 37 seconds? Hey, I got you, son. I got
you. We're learning. All right, so definitely replay that. I mean, just gold. You said photo topics. Is that kind of like a branding mechanism? So like it leads to something different, or help me understand a little bit more about the photo topics there.
Ask me your question. Ask me a question like I'm 5.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of creating these visual elements that your brand could be known for. So whether it's, a for sale sign or you jumping up with a champagne bottle, but something that they would see over and over. And my question is it the same image, or is it more of a visual cue that when I see that, I know that's Jasmine, and I know that's going to lead to something else.
Real good. It is a visual cue. You don't want to have the same photo again and again. And I see this a lot of people when they're like really struggling for content. They'll use the same background photo and they add text on top of it. It's like your audience is going to be so bored with seeing the same dang thing over and over again. Specifically, when you're attracting a new follower, like very few people are actually looking at your entire grid. Your current followers aren't going back to your profile. They're like, you know what? Let me read John's bio. That's what I'm really about. No, your followers aren't like, I want to go back to his highlights. No, all of those things are to pre-qualify your future followers. So if I go to your account, I don't know who you are, and all I see are a bunch of, quote graphics with the same logo and then like this inspirational Abraham Lincoln or Malcolm X quote, it's like, I'm not really excited to follow whatever this is. So a photo topic is a visual cue. So I'll give you a few examples of my visual cues. If you come to my account, a visual cue is me as a photographer. I'm holding my camera or I'm shooting. A visual cue would be me working with my husband and my business partner. A visual cue would be my dog Polo. I call him our CEO. A visual cue is you're going to be like, I drink a lot of coffee. I just do. I'm not proud of it, but I will be posting cups of coffee, me drinking coffee, me making coffee. Every Tuesday, I host something called Coffee and Conversations on what? Instagram, right? So I brew a cup of coffee, I drink coffee, I do live Q&A. Beginning to embed those visual cues that are associated with the thing that you're talking about. Because what do I call coffee? Productivity juice. Okay. So now your followers are, okay, this is why I'm a follower. This is what I see. What is she talking about? It's just a way to start connecting the dots, because there's billions of people on Instagram. How are people going to know it's you if you don't lay out the constellation for them?
I love it, Jasmine. Powerful information right there. And I just did a quick scroll of her Instagram just to get even more context.
Your eyes shifting.
Absolutely. I was looking at these cute babies over here. I was like, these are just adorable.
So that's new. So she's new. She's new to it. I adopted a baby girl 5 months ago, and she's the light of our life. I don't know quite yet. Like everyone's like, every photo is going to be of your baby. I know I'm still following the social curator layout, like 1 every 9 photos. We're going to see a little mix of baby girl in there. But here's the thing, John, I'm not saying my baby, because what of value is that to the follower? I really want to talk about, what does the baby embody? My daughter, a daughter that I have waited and prayed for over a decade, she embodies the future. She embodies a woman. She embodies a brown woman. What does it mean for you to be a boss? Right? When people, baby girl, when people call you bossy, I want you to respond, I'm a boss. Why do you doubt it? right? Like I want to break my ceiling be her floor. And there's going to be a reason that somebody would read that and say, I identify. I want the same thing for my son, for my daughter. Let me listen a little closer to what she has to say. I am contextualizing visually in service of the follower, not like my life is so cute. Because it's not. It's just not.
Man, I really appreciate that because, I mean, so many people, we want to share our stories or share our lives, and to keep that focus on the follower and how do they gain value out of this, even when it's an adorable picture of a baby. I think that just provides the appropriate mindset and context that you really want to focus on serving the audience as opposed to just sharing photos of your cute kid. So great tips there. Jasmine, are you ready to move on to our Bullseye Round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Jasmine, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Oh, I was creating content early in my career, and I was like, so you see, photographers, you're going to want to use this camera and this lens. And I talked a whole blog post about this lens, and the lens didn't actually exist. And all the haters and all the trolls came out. They're like, you're sitting here creating tutorials and you don't even know what lens you use. And I looked at it and I was like, oh snap, they're right. I called it, the 50 millimeter 1.5. That lens doesn't exist. And I was like, oh, it's the 1.8. I went back and I fixed my blog post. I said, thank you haters, I'm stronger and better. I thought that it would crush me, but it made me better. Show up, fix your mistakes, own them, move on.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Social curator. That's my business. Okay. If you can't talk about your business, ain't nobody else gonna.
There we go. All right. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
There's been a few, but I'm gonna go with my gut right now. It's Do the Work by Steven Pressfield. Even if you're not a reader, there are these tiny little chapters that you could read one page every night. It'll be a loving kick in the pants. Do the Work, Steven Pressfield.
All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Prayer and meditation. Every morning I'm up between 4:30 and 5, and I leave about 25 minutes just as my own to read, pray, and meditate.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Jump and the net will appear.
Explain.
Well, you get in your head, right? Like you think of all the things that could go wrong instead of investing the same amount of time and energy to imagine what could go right. And so instead of like teetering on the precipice of taking the jump, it's only when you take the jump can you see the net. It's only that you could see the other side because there's a fog in a canyon. You're on one side and you're like, do I jump? You will jump because you were going to jump to the other side of the canyon, or this net that you didn't see before is going to catch you. Every time you jump, you learn something along the way, and no, you're not going to plunge to your death. You plunge to a lesson.
What are you curious about right now?
TikTok.
And I know you're in California, but where exactly are you located?
I'm in Newport Beach, California.
Newport Beach. Give me the best place to grab a bite in Newport Beach.
Well, it depends what kind of food that you want. I'm a health nut. I'm like out here. Like that's how we do. I really enjoyed True Foods Kitchen. It's like very gluten-free, friendly California fare. But there's also on the opposite end of the spectrum is Javier's. If you want some Mexican food by the ocean, Javier's is where you want to be.
Javier's and True Food. All right, definitely make sure we check those out. Not sure when we'll be back in California, but hopefully sometime soon. And for our listeners, I know that when I go to your Instagram, you have a great download available. Can you talk a little bit about that, the IG branding download that's available for our listeners?
Absolutely. So if I just want to take this moment real quickly as like a lesson, your exit link on Instagram should be a resource to go deeper with somebody. It isn't to point them to a YouTube video where you look really fly and fresh. It's maybe kind of sort of not even a pointing to your website unless your website has lead acquisition. What I want to do is I want to provide a resource that you find interesting. So every month or so, I change out that link. At the time of this recording, we have an Instagram audio branding guide. But the way that I'm actually going to go deeper with you is I'm going to give you some really great content. But in order for you to access it, you got to leave a review on the Jasmine Star Show podcast. And then I give you almost an hour walking you through how to take your Instagram from blah to blazing. You know what I'm saying? So every time there's a way for me to go deeper with you as a result of there being a mutual exchange of time, respect, and energy.
Love it. Listen, Jasmine, you gave a lot of great value today. I genuinely appreciate you coming on the show. And for any listeners who's checking this out, if you go to Jasmine's Instagram account, which is Jasmine, you want to say it for us real quick?
Jasmine Star on all social platforms, and you can find me at jasminestar.com.
There you go. So straight Jasmine Star is what you need. And if you do that, if you go to her signature in her bio, there's a link right there for the download. So check it out. There's way more information available. So I didn't want to go super deep into the weeds because I know she has a lot of that content available. But please make sure you check out Jasmine. Jasmine, a lot of fun talking to you. Really great information for us to think about our personal brand, how we use these platforms, and how we keep our focus on serving our audience with all of the content we create. Thank you again for coming on Target Market Insights. We hope you have a great day.
Thank you.